Carloy intensifies Queen's coronation ceremony meals with antidote elements, fearing more poisoning attempts. He tries to avoid them, but Duke Delois' terrifying efforts are remembered. After his marriage to Yvonne, he feels unsafe after a year. Luckily, his predictions were wrong. Carloy's meal was fine, and there were no assassins targeting him. Carloy's meal was fine and there were no assassins. Gordon reassured Carloy that the Duke of Delois is not reckless and has his own procedures for dealing with silence, which is a problem. Carloy asked about the Empress. Gordon answered that she was busy preparing for the Queen's ceremony, but he is still uneasy, making it unclear what she can do to him. A secret letter to Kina, 2 days before the ceremony was delivered, and told it to Carloy, whose resistance to poison is weak. Kina muttered after reading a letter revealing the Duke of Delois' plan to poison her at the Queen's ceremony, which does not surprising for both Carloy and Kina. Carloy is surprised by the secret letter, which he believes is a trap. They question the identity of the Duke's servants and the type of trap they will use. So they held their breath and waited for the ceremony as if they had become bait themselves. On the day of the ceremony, it wasn't only Carloy and Kina that focused all of their attention on the coronation ceremony. The Emperor's nobles attempted to find fault with the Empress, but the coronation ceremony was perfect. But the Emperor was not dancing or exchanging a glance with the Empress. The Emperor and Queen's love affair continued, showcasing Carloy's affection. Yvonne remained breathless, observing Carloy's conversation and dancing with Kina. Carloy was uncomfortable with the uncertainty of whether the information in a letter was true and if it would cause poisoning. Yvonne was asked by Carloy if she did the ceremony alone, implying she was assisted by the Duke. Yvonne accepted the compliment, noticing the meaning in Carloy's cold atmosphere, and answered yes. He felt anger with her and threatened to remove her from the Empress's seat if she did anything wrong. Carloy warns Yvonne not to plan anything to harm Kina during the coronation ceremony and leave her alone. Yvonne asked him if she can do something like that. Carloy firmly believes Yvonne is capable of more than just killing the Queen. Yvonne argues that if the Queen is wronged, it would benefit His Majesty, who would make her take responsibility and kill her. Carloy glared at Yvonne with a ferocious expression, seemingly unfairly urging her to try, claiming he wouldn't kill her easily. Carloy raised a toast cup to celebrate Croissant's glory, but remained calm as he lowered it. Kina remembered the letter sent to her. Yvonne lifts a glass, expressing hope for Croissant's glory, despite her heartless voice. Kina, fearing the poisonous situation, grabbed her cup. Despite being a non-poison tolerant individual, she was hesitant to risk her life. As Yvonne lowered her cup, Kina raised her toast cup, causing Yvonne to vomit blood. The hall became chaotic. Kina took a silver rod and confirmed the wine was poisoned, while Yvonne fell on Carloy's shoulder, smearing his shoulder with her blood. Her hand was shaking, indicating she was still conscious. Carloy, trembling, grasped Yvonne and opened a bottle of antidote, causing Yvonne to lose consciousness and fall into Carloy's arms. Carloy, unable to speak, declared that the Empress was poisoned and ordered to block all entrances to the Imperial Palace. The Empress was poisoned, and the Imperial Palace was flipped over. Investigation began, but no evidence and witness was found. As they were killed, even the Empress attendants. Carloy believed it was the Duke's work, as he was familiar with it. The Queen is suspected of poisoning the Empress during the coronation ceremony, but the Marquis of Rodin denies it. The Duke claims the Marquis poisoned the Empress, but no evidence supports it. The investigation ends with no lead and no evidence. Nevertheless, the Duke could not intentionally try to poison his daughter. That was what Carloy gathered from his reaction. His face was as surprised as a person who had been in an unexpected situation. But the Duke wouldn't make a mistake, and he didn't have anyone to change glasses, except for only one person. On the third day, Carloy struggles to understand why he was in the Empress bedroom and why he hastily fed the antidote, since he wants Yvonne's death if he didn't act. The Emperor recalls Yvonne vomiting blood, causing him discomfort and trembling. Rumors circulate in the Imperial Palace that the Emperor has finally realized the Empress's worth. Yvonne opened her eyes and blinked slowly, confused by her close proximity to Cal, who hates her green eyes. She whispers, "Cal?" Carloy muttered and stared blankly at Yvonne. Yvonne's eyes closed, and Carloy remained motionless, unable to comprehend the situation. Carloy was disturbed by the Empress's bizarre behavior, considering she called his nickname and the possibility of having another man named Cal, which he found absurd and unsettling. The feeling of being called by his own nickname reminded him of a person he missed, but he shook his head. He must have gone crazy himself. They are not alike. Why the hell did he think that? Carloy, trembling, contemplates Yvonne's words, deciding to live quietly in the palace to benefit his majesty and avoid any disturbance. Carloy feels suffocated and Yvonne's gaze reminds him of her in the garden. Yvonne's unhappy face changes after hearing Carloy's answer, revealing Yvonne was poisoned and fell instead of Kina. I think the Empress does not hate your majesty. Kina's words hit him hard in the head, but still, it didn't make sense. Yvonne had no reason not to hate him. Yvonne woke up to find Carloy, and she asked him why he was there. Yvonne continued to examine Carloy, trying to determine if this was a dream or reality. Carloy tried to open his mouth and asked how she was, and Yvonne calmly answered that she was feeling dizzy but fine. Carloy suspects her, who appears overly calm after being poisoned. He asked if she may have known the Duke's plan. Carloy questions her about the poisoned glass, if she knew about it in advance. Despite her unemotional tone, she answered she wouldn't poison herself, but Carloy remains unconvinced. Yvonne's strange attitude fueled Carloy's crazy speculation, as he became convinced of her drinking the poisoned wine and remembered what Kina said. If you are blinded by love, you lose sight. Kina's voice hovered in Carloy's head. The image of his grandfather who sold the country for his love was there too. Even before the rational judgment was over, Carloy acted instinctively. He grabbed Yvonne's cold hand on the bed. At his unfamiliar appearance, Yvonne turned her head back with surprised eyes and looked at Carloy. Carloy and Yvonne experienced a strange tension and silence, and Yvonne's eyes widened in shock as Carloy told her he was worried with her. Yvonne Delois was the illegitimate child of the Duke of Delois, who is said to control the fate, even of the royal family. At 12, Yvonne Delois was confined in the Duke's basement, often subjected to beatings. However, she was not the real Yvonne Delois. After her daughter's death, the Duke brought in an illegitimate child, Lillian Liu. Yvonne Delois' short answer became a habit, fearing criticism and violence from the Duke. She knows that if she talks too much, the Duke will end her and her mother. Yvonne's marriage to the Emperor was met with a sudden warning from the Duke of Delois, requiring her to obey his demands and not be foolish with him, including kindly treatment, a light relationship, and having children. The Duke searched the continent for a high-level wizard to prevent secrets from leaking. Despite doubts, Yvonne agreed to the spell, which would never disappear unless the wizard dies. The Duke said to her, "What? Don't worry. A girl who can ruin it once can ruin it again." Yvonne answered that he doesn't know he was the crown prince back then. Yvonne wanted to rip her ears off because the Duke never got tired of talking about what happened 14 years ago, but she hid her feelings. Yvonne is confused by the image of her brutally killing the Duke, and the distortion of the word foolish due to the fact that she saved a boy who was almost killed by being kidnapped. Yvonne is warned to be respectful and watch closely the Emperor, as the Duke's blood doesn't change. Despite her initial doubts, she agrees. Yvonne muttered alone in her empty room. The day before her wedding, Yvonne thought while lying on her bed, if, as the Duke says, if she jumps out like a madwoman, will Carloy respond? Would he react because she was his enemy's daughter? When she imagined Carloy in her childhood, but it was unlikely that he would be the same. There is a demon here. Obviously, this has to be the demon's work. He tried to kill my uncles and my father too. On that day, a face that became bloody, with limbs being tied up, was Carloy. He was talking while shedding tears. That hate and spite were visible on his face. Despite her reflection, the man was still in a bad mood, causing him to become angry, while she deemed it wise not to disclose her true identity. Contrary to his solemn words, tears were continually flowing from his young eyes. How harsh must it be for him, who was young, to be in such tears? Lillian comforted little Carloy, who was crying, while urging her to put her dirty hands away. She recalled Carloy screaming, imagining a dirty temper. Carloy initially mistakenly thought Lillian was a boy, but it wasn't her fault. Lillian, not raised to be girly, didn't correct the misunderstanding. She was hopeless. Unless he has ancient wizard class eyes, there is no way he would know it was Lillian back when by looking at her now. Even now, whenever she looked in the mirror, She felt unfamiliar with herself. No, she was rather disgusted with the appearance that resembled the Duke too much. When I go back, I will definitely find you. I will never forget. I promise you, Lou. Yvonne prays for a miracle, promising to forgive past misfortunes and only ask for one this time. Yvonne whispered, as if reciting her prayer, perhaps miracles could happen, and he might remember her. Lou, I'll make sure you don't suffer anyone. I will protect you. She wonders if he'll keep the promises from his youthful days when he didn't know anything. Maybe it's not going to happen. Yvonne realized that hope is a futile illusion grasped by humans with low probability when she saw Carloy at the wedding. Yvonne, nervous and anxious, entered the wedding hall, amidst a familiar threat from her father that her mother's life is within his hand, who wished for her happiness. She looked at Carloy in his eyes with an intense desire for him to recognize her, but his expression only got more and more ugly. He didn't recognize her. Carloy abruptly left the ceremony, leaving Yvonne alone, feeling a break in her heart.